Welcome to The Gorgeous Effect, the podcast that's about to rock your marketing world. I'm Julie Chenell, and with my co-founder, Cathy Olson, we're the masterminds behind Funnel Gorgeous and FG Funnels. We're about to drop some serious tea on how to create funnels that not only look amazing, but actually convert into customers. We'll chat mouth-watering offers, copy, design, and give you an inside look of some of our best and worst funnels. No smoke and mirrors, just real strategies that work from two ladies who have been around the funnel block. So grab your coffee or something stronger, we won't judge, and get ready to unleash the gorgeous effect on your business. It's time to show the world what you've got. Let's do this. Hey everyone, it's Julie and Cathy. We're back with another episode of The Gorgeous Effect. Today, we're talking about fixing your forgettable nature. And the idea here is that most of us don't realize it, but we put out offers that are basically forgettable. They lack any sort of energy or pizzazz that makes someone go, man, remember when I saw XYZ? And so we want to talk about fixing that forgettable nature so that you are never forgotten, never have to be introduced twice, and inscribed in people's minds and hearts. And that's how you're going to stand out. So let's talk about that today. What do you think, Kath?
Yeah, I think that people are not used to branding and or like, packaging an offer versus a person and a business. And that's like one of the, like, I almost feel like we should start there because like, even when you were just saying like a person being forgettable versus like an offer being forgettable, but like you in a funnel, your offer first, right? Like they're seeing the offer before they know who you are. And so that's why the offer has to be memorable, because they won't even get to learn to know who you are, unless they know unless they care about what you're offering first. So it's super interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah, there's two ways that people can kind of come into your world. The first is that personal branding where they find you on social media or what have you, and they get to know you and they get to know your personality and they warm up, right? And that's sort of like what we call inbound marketing, where people find you, fall in love with you, and then buy everything that you put out. And that's warm traffic selling. Cold traffic selling is exactly like you say. They are scrolling on social media, they're clicking on an ad, they're clicking on a link somewhere, they have no idea who you are. The offer itself has to be unforgettable and memorable, because that's going to be the first introduction, and then they're going to get to know you. So this explains why it's really hard to sell to cold traffic, because you've got to, overcome that. And so we went and spent a good chunk of money on a domain called offerbrand.com, because we are known in the space for being great with offers. We launched a course called Offer Cure back in 2019. And the whole goal of that course was to help you revive an offer, make that offer irresistible. And Offer Brand is sort of the second iteration of Offer Cure, like mega upgraded, but also kind of speaking to what's going on with offers right now. And the crowded market is only getting more crowded. Like, it is crazy how fast people can put out offers now with AI. It's just, the competition's fierce.
Well, yeah, because if Offer Cure is focusing on creating like a really irresistible offer, Offer Brand is like the first step to getting noticed, that so they even read about your irresistible offer, right? Because that's the problem, is that if attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and or the market's getting more and more saturated, how the heck do you even give them their ear for a freaking millisecond, right? Like, I read this statistic that people take like less than the one like beat of a hummingbird, like one flap of a hummingbird, like
it
before
used to
they
be
decide.
Like 8-second goldfish, and now we're the heartbeat of the hummingbird.
Like one flap of their wing, which I know you love hummingbirds, so you know how fast it is. But it takes that long, like it's like that long for us, our brains, to make a decision about the value of something, and so not necessarily to understand the offer. But as soon as we see something, we are immediately making these like snap decisions about, do we spend any more of my energy on this? Like, do I read any further? Do I look any more? Like, does this look like something I'm interested in? Is it not? Like, that's how quickly we make some of those decisions. And not to say that someone won't stick around and read longer, but it's it's the subconscious connection
Yeah.
before we even can read words.
Yeah.
Like you think about a stop sign, the fact that it has a shape and it's red, or at least in America, I don't know if they look different. I'm sure they look different in other places, but that's like when we see that symbol, we understand we're supposed to stop before we can read the words stop, right? And so it's
Yeah.
stuff like that where it's like no longer is it okay to or enough to have just a really irresistible offer or have to be like have an awesome product. Like we need to know these tricks that people are using to like hack into psyche so that they
Yeah.
even pay attention. And so this is the level of that we're needing to think about at this point.
Yeah. All right. So Offer Brand is a brand new course and it's going to be focusing on like four pieces, whereas Offer Cure, and if you didn't buy Offer Cure, you should totally go check it out. Go to offercure.com. We went through three phases. We went through the first where we asked ourselves the questions about the offer. Then we talked about the copy of the offer, writing about it, and then we talked about product mock-ups, right? Those visual representations. Offer Brand is going a little bit deeper on that sort of subconscious level. So we are going through four like main things inside of Offer Brand. Maybe we can touch on them each. So the first is that we're going to look at the offer again, just like we did in Offer Cure, but this time we're going to think about it in a transformational way. Like, how do we make sure that this offer is outcome based and transformational? Because now in 2025 and beyond, information is 100% a commodity. And it was kind of a commodity in 2019 when we launched Offer Cure, but now it's hella commodity, right? So you have to do outcome based transformational products. Then we're going to talk about naming, and we have taught naming in all different ways, but we're going to go much deeper on naming because this is really what makes people say your course name or your offer name to somebody else, right? And then we're going to go into what people traditionally think of as branding: fonts, colors, logos, style, visual elements. And then finally, we'll talk about how you carry that energy across, social media, your sales pages. And so that's what we're going to go through in Offer Brand. And I think I want to ask you a question about naming, because I think that even though that's the second thing we're going to talk about, I think it's one of the most important parts of an offer brand is how you name it. And people get this so wrong so often. And you are like the queen of names. Like, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, well, I just use human psychology really, but you have to it helps to know what your goals are for naming. So there's really two goals when you're naming something. The first one is to attract people, which we already talked about, right? Like how do you get someone's attention? How do you attract them? How do you attract the right person? Because that's really what it's all about. But the second piece is how do you stick in their minds and how are you memorable? Because they might not be in a place at that moment in time where they can buy it, or maybe they're not ready to buy it, but like, how are they ever going to remember it like later on if someone else says it or something, right? So, like, there's the initial attraction piece. That's the first goal. And then the second goal is to remember it so that they can buy it later, they can tell a friend about it, then the friend remembers it, right? So like there's really those two pieces on your main goals, and when you focus on those as goals, you have so much easier of a time, I think, to name it, but also to make it successful as a name, and it's not just like a descriptor, right?
Yeah.
That's where the people usually
Mhm.
it breaks down is when they're trying to like explain what the offer is through the name, and that is not the goal of a name, like at all, anyway, like full stop, period. Do not. So if your name is currently trying to explain what the offer is, you're doing it wrong, and you need to like immediately probably rename it. And that might be one of your problems of why it's not selling, because it's not attracting the right people and or they're not remembering it. So that can really like kill your offer, even if it's an awesome offer.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's honestly, it's one of the hardest things to change. I remember having to change the name of one of my courses, and it's just painstaking, right? So you want to get that right, and you want to get it
Yes,
right
much
out of the gate.
easier to get it right the first time and than
Yeah.
it is to try to rename it and get a new .com
Later.
and like all those things. Yeah. It's rough, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
not doable, especially if you're not selling it, because then no one knows,
Yeah, true.
right?
True.
If nobody owns it and you haven't sold it yet, you're basically starting from scratch. So feel free to rename it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, so we will talk about naming. We'll also do a little bit of a deep dive into domains because that's an ongoing saga for folks. So we'll be covering both of those things. And you might be listening to this podcast episode, and if you have been in our world, you might be like, "Man, I heard you talk about names and domains and Launch Gorgeous," or "I heard you talk about it," because we've talked about it in multiple places, and every time we are talking about it in, these accelerators or these boot camps where it's like, okay, come up with a name for whatever type of product we're helping people with. But we wanted to have one place that someone could go back to again and again and again every time they're setting up an offer and go through the offer process. We are going to be teaching the offer brief, which is sort of a V2 of Offer Cure. And we have built a GPT that's going to help you carry out. I'm so excited about this GPT. I feel like I'm finally getting really good at building GPTs. And for those of you who don't know, it's like an AI assisted assistant to help you build your offer brief. And then to make sure that that offer is truly transformational. And then you get passed off to Cathy, where she's going to take you deep in the name, the visual elements, and all of that other stuff, so that when you finally do launch, no matter how, webinar, challenge, summit, doesn't matter, that this offer is both transformational and unforgettable. And so I think that I have a question for you. You used to work in a really you used to work with like big brands,
Hmm.
right? Like Disney. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, Disney, Apple, Best Buy, Costco, Walmart,
Yeah.
Sam's Club, all those
So
guys.
so you're not just like some self-taught like internet marketer brander. You're like college formally trained in brand design, right? And what do you think
Yeah.
is the key difference between companies like Best Buy, Apple, Disney versus like the little internet marketing, bootstrappy companies? Like what are they doing or what are they thinking about that obviously we can't do at the level they do because they're huge companies. But is there something that they're thinking about that it would be beneficial for us to think that way as well when it comes to branding?
Yeah, good question. Everything that we're teaching in Offer Brand, to be honest, but so that's a good point. I mean, I come from big brand world where people do things just for brand and they're not selling anything. Like, they just want you to remember their brand. They just want you to recognize their logo. They just want you to recognize the colors, and they pay just to put it in front of your eyeballs, like subconsciously, right? They don't talk about, I mean, sometimes they do, obviously. And like, if you think about, we just got fresh off of the Super Bowl commercials, right? So I'm thinking about I'm watching all these commercials and they almost have nothing to do with selling. They're like totally different type of marketing than we're used to. We're used
Yeah.
to talking about, features and benefits and problems and solutions. And they're all about just like, how do people feel about us as a company? So it's really interesting. It's not really the way that we sell, but it shouldn't not be the way that we sell, right? Because we should take a page from these big brands and how we make people feel and what we stand for. And it's kind of this underlying piece, but I think it does lend itself to offers too. And I think it is why our offers convert so much higher than like the norm, is because we do pay attention to like the underlying piece of how people feel about what we do, and how we help people. But I don't think that people can automatically connect with this stuff and they don't really understand what your brand is saying, which is a huge problem, right? So like,
Yeah.
you have your offer and you have your colors and you have whatever, but what is it saying underneath? What are the subconscious things that are happening? And that's what I love to teach about, is like really like, what is your brand saying without saying anything? Because there's the message, there's right, because there's the messaging that's written that they're reading, but then what's like the underlying messaging? Like, what are we actually telling people about what we believe and our morals or whatever, right? And like, and who we help and how we serve through the colors, through the font choices. And so, because you could be and this is especially if you're DIYing, which we don't like frown upon at all. If you are DIYing, the you're the most at risk of saying the wrong thing. So either you're saying nothing at all or you're saying the wrong thing, even though you're trying really hard. So that can be really difficult, but it is something that, companies spend bajillions of dollars on is this underlying subconscious like branding and what they're saying to people when they're using
Yeah.
their products. I mean, it goes in all facets, but visual is one of the easiest ones for people to tweak and change. And especially for offers, the way that we sell them.
Yeah. So, if you are interested, you can go to offerbrand.com, and that is where you can get more information. And if you feel like your offer is getting lost in the noise, either through confusion or just being forgotten, this is definitely a course that you're going to want in your back pocket. And one kind of fun thing to know is that if you have an offer, we have just like a little 10-question quiz in the first module. It's actually module 0, about why you can't afford not to have a brand. And we ask you a couple questions and then you score, and we rank it whether or not you need an emergency brand rescue versus having a master brand. So be sure to check that out when you get into the course, because it will help if you have an offer and it's just like things aren't really working. And it's so funny because every person that has like come to me privately and they're like, man, this offer, it's kind of selling, but it's not really. Like, it usually ends up being a branding or positioning problem, because once you get those things right, the position, the promise, and the price and the branding like supports that, it just goes. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, and then once a person experiences what it's like to sell something easily, that's when the light bulb goes on, like, oh, everything I've done beforehand was not branded properly, but once I get it right, then they can taste the difference. And that's the thing we hope happens with people when they do offer brand.
Yeah, I would say if you're wondering if your brand is doing a good job or not, like one way to know is if it just doesn't seem like it's connecting, right?
Yeah.
Like if you feel like you've kind of done all the things or you've tried all the things or you keep trying all the things and it's just not like landing, it's not connecting for some reason, like people aren't totally getting it, or like it's not finding the right people, it's probably your brand. Like
Yeah.
if you've done all the other things and you're just scratching your head going like, what is wrong with this? I can't freaking figure it out. It might be
Yeah.
that, right? Like if it's just something and you can't quite put your finger on it and people are just not connecting with it and they're not understanding like what you're putting out, that could be a big piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks for hanging with us, and go to offerbrand.com and check it out. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We're just getting started with this podcast, and we're so excited to have you on this journey with us. If you found value in today's episode, we'd be over the moon if you'd consider subscribing. It's like a virtual high five that keeps us going. And hey, if you're feeling extra gorgeous, leaving a review would mean the world to us. Your words not only make our day, but it also helps other amazing folks just like you find our show through your review. Lastly, if you know someone who could use a little sales pep talk, why not spread the love? Share this episode and let's grow this gorgeous community together.